Hi again, everybody. It's Kevin Canessa coming to you from the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com on this, the 28th day of February in the year 2022. Sure hope you're enjoying your Monday, no matter where it is you are in the country. And as you do each and every Monday, you welcome me into your homes so that I might go over this week's news with you. Before I do that, though, for the third or fourth time in as many months, TheObserver.com is down today. Won't be back until tomorrow. We just had to spend a substantial amount more money to get it protected completely. The technician the last time gave us a recommendation, and it turned out it wasn't good enough. And there are people around the world who just like to mess with websites. It's unbelievable what these hackers do. So we apologize in advance that the website is down, but hopefully tomorrow morning it should be back up and running and ready to go, where you'll be able to see this and everything else on theobserver.com. So it just, I can't imagine what they do and why they have such a joy doing it, these people. If they actually use their time wisely, imagine what they would be able to do when you consider what they can do illegally, these hackers. But it is what it is. And the front page this week is a varied front page. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. In Belleville, Councilman Steve Rovell has filed to challenge Mayor Mike Mellem for the mayoralty in Belleville. That election is coming up in May, and it's going to be, by all accounts, a very interesting election. Let's just say that. On the dais, when there are council meetings, Rovell and Mellem aren't exactly the best of buddies, so I don't want to say right off the bat that this is going to be a feisty election, but I think that would probably be a safe assumption at this point. So it should be interesting to see what develops over the next 8 weeks or so before the voters head to the polls in Belleville to choose their mayor for a 4-year term. Mellem, of course, is a one-term mayor, and Rovell's been on the council for a while, so it's going to be interesting to say the least. John Taylor, Lieutenant John Taylor of the Kearney Police Department, retired. His last day was last Thursday, and as she so beautifully does for so many people, Carol Manley, who works under John, organized a farewell gathering outside of police headquarters. Almost all of the crossing guards were there. They fall under the Traffic Bureau's purview, and John completed his 25-plus year career with the Kearney Police Department and goes on to greener pastures. He was always such an easy guy to work with. You know, whether it was the click it or ticket or the you text, you drive, you pay, you name it. When it was anything to do with traffic, and he was the commander, it was always such a pleasure to work with him. And I know I'm going to miss him, and I can tell, you know, not many people, when they retire, get a gathering like that. And everybody, to a person, was saying what a great boss John was. And it doesn't surprise me one bit, and I know they're all going to miss him tremendously. But they're left in good hands with Sergeant Dave Rakowski, who takes over the Traffic Bureau and be in charge, of course, of the crossing guards and the meter readers, which is what Carol does now. She worked for John as a crossing guard and as a meter person, too, so she's got a lot of experience in saying what a great guy he was. We'll miss John, but we also wish him very, very well in his retirement. Nutley St. Patrick's Day Parade returns on March 5th after a one-year hiatus. If you recall, back in 2020, they actually had their parade. It was right as the pandemic started. And there was a lot of discussion about whether they would actually have the parade that year. They did, and it was like a couple of days after that everything kind of fell apart in the world. So their parade returns on March 5th, and Ron Lear has profiles of all of those who are being honored in the parade. There are quite a few people. As we move inside, Hudson County Community College is endorsing a new program called Hudson Scholars. It's a new program that Chris Reber, the president of the college, is endorsing. So you read about that on page number 2. Page 3 is this week's Kearney Police Blotter. It contains a story that's a week old, but it's a very interesting situation because if you recall, last week there was a carjacking at the ShopRite in Kearney, and there were a lot of different reports about what happened, none of which seemed to be very accurate. But in the end, the guy carjacks the vehicle from the parking lot at ShopRite. The man whose car it was broke his arm, and his 1-year-old child was inside the car. So the guy's driving south on Passaic Avenue toward East Newark, and I guess he probably hears a baby crying, and he decides to just abandon the vehicle across from Top's Diner. They're still looking for the guy. They haven't caught him yet, but I'm sure they will. And I'm sure when he is caught, he will be brought to justice swiftly. But, that could have been a really, really awful tragedy, considering that there was a baby in the vehicle. But fortunately, the guy was smart enough to abandon the vehicle and leave the baby unharmed. Police arrived shortly thereafter. Didn't get him, but they did recover the baby, who is doing just fine. Thank God. That could have been just brutal. As we move on, there's a new movie studio in South Kearney that you can read all about. It's a brand new second one in Kearney Point. So a lot of times when you look at the small screen and the big screen, you're going to see places and things that are being filmed in studios that are located in Kearney. It's becoming a new hub and a great use for South Kearney. It's no longer just awful things down there. Lots going on. Great stuff, a new renaissance in South Kearney. Joanne Cacciola, the former mayor of Nutley, became the municipal court judge a couple years ago. She has moved on to become a state judge, and there is a new judge in the township of Nutley, so hope you'll take a look at that. And the What's Hudson Arts and Theater company, Whatco, is putting on Bridesmaid Murder, and it's an interactive dinner experience, and that's coming up pretty soon, so we'll hope you check that out. And it'll also be the first time that Brandy Lee Miller, as president of Whatco, puts on a performance as she replaces the immortal Jerry Facito, who stays on as founding president emeritus of Whatco. Women's Club of Arlington is putting on an author's tea with a best-selling New York Times author. So check that out. That's on page 7. And we thank Dolores Christie, who is back to being the Women's Club of Arlington's publicity chair. We love Dolores. She does a fantastic job with all of the things that she does there. Joanne Barton has a story about her past couple of shows, some very, very interesting tidbits in there. And, of course, Jim Haig has his usual sports for this week's edition of The Observer. Check those out when you get a chance, including an athlete of the week. We have 2 pages of classifieds, as we do always. You won't be able to see them until Tuesday because the website probably won't be up by this evening, but check it out anyway. Maybe it will be. But if you're looking for a job or an apartment or anything of that nature, we have got you covered. That's going to do it, believe it or not, for this week's edition of The Observer Live. I want to thank each and every one of you for logging on and joining me tonight on this Monday evening. Don't forget, we'll be back 1 week from today, but of course, if anything breaks during the course of the week, we'll join you live, and we will let you know and keep you as up-to-date as is possible. From the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com, it's Kevin Cadessa signing off for now. We'll see you back here again very, very soon. Good night, everybody.